Welcome everyone. This is the third session of our C-City Conversation series, which is happening in this semester, which is titled Architectural Practice in India and a Millennial Archaeology. And I'm very glad to welcome all of you audiences online and here sitting with us offline. I'm Anuj Daga. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Environment and Architecture, and I also coordinate the C-City series at the school. Just for those who may be visiting us for the first time and also our online audiences, C-City is the School of Environment and Architecture's outreach program, and it organizes events, lectures, symposia, and exhibitions in order to engage with the larger artistic and cultural discursive sphere within and outside the city. These city events are completely open to all public, and they are attended by a diverse group of people including students, architects, professionals, and academics, or sometimes also locals. This series is also partly supported by the Urban Center Mumbai, which was instituted in 2020, which is a node for dialogue and ideating, deliberation, and to carry out research and to communicate on urban planning, urban design, and urban conservation issues within the Mumbai metropolitan region. So you all may be familiar with this series, which has been running for the last month. We have already conducted 2 sessions. The first session was on how there was a corporate turn in architectural practice in India after the 90s. And the last session, which if I may summarize, which was the second session on urban periphery as an experimental field. We looked at architectural experiments in new peripheral locations such as Alibag, Pauna, Ambi Valley, Lonavala, Karjat, and so on. And we saw how the architectural project is in this phase and in this place is now a small built up in a large kind of piece of land where the view of the surrounding landscape takes precedence while the building maneuvers the virgin landscape. And sometimes we also observed how these sites are situated in peripheral setting, which are seen as escapes, sometimes even architecturally to transport us to Spanish, Moroccan, or Mediterranean style spaces. And this cosmopolitan desire for openness translates into necessary swimming pools, oversized bathrooms, and jacuzzis. You can say a flirtation with the wilderness and the creation of home as a periscopic pavilion. So while a lot of these questions were answered and also remained unanswered, we are yet to dig into the one that open up these new ways of thinking about the shift in architectural practice. Meanwhile, we move on to look closely at yet another change in approach to practice in India over the millennium. And this session is titled as Multinational Dispositions. And I want to start by kind of bringing out an observation from Rahul Mehrotra's book, Architecture in India since 1990s, where he articulated about the coming of foreign practices in India, especially the multinational corporations. And he observes, and I quote, design services are often outsourced to Western firms perceived to be competent, well experienced, and in configuring global buildings, namely those well versed in the use of new materials and technologies that meet international standards and facilitate the predictable value of buildings' performance. This notion of design by remote agency enhances rather than diminishes the form of global. More importantly, it epitomizes a reversal of outsourcing, which we also saw in the first session, in which Indian patrons have to outsource the design work to the West in order to receive instructions on how to make the buildings that eventually house the activities outsourced to India from the West. So he's basically talking about how design work was actually in the new typologies of mega project that were coming in the Indian landscape were seen to be more handleable by Western firms rather than Indian firms, local firms. And he's talking of how this kind of in these firms the people who are working are again kind of from here, and so he is talking about that reversal. So we have some very pertinent people to discuss these kinds of forces and movements within practice today with us, and just to kind of lay out today. So while these architectural practice from India corporatized themselves into larger practices in the first half, design services were also outsourced, like I said, but they were a lot of design firms also came, international multinational firms came to India because they were understood to offer more competency and deliver projects with greater speed. And in order to bridge their unfamiliarity of local landscape and ways of operation, these firms often collaborated with local practices that helped contextualize their works for the site under construction to some extent here. And several large international offices that establish their branches in India also bring local experts in order to better operate in this region through maintaining yet a global sensibility in design. So these dual tendencies begin to inform a multinational outlook in architectural practice in India, which is observed primarily in post the millennium. And here, collaboration serves as a productive model for grounding architecture in the register of new materials and technologies that are able to meet what we understand as international standards. So this panel opens up questions such as the politics of these collaborations, and what happens when delivery of architectural projects happen over long distances, and what are the interests and intentions that get reshaped in this whole process. So we have three practices today, and I'll just read out a brief introduction to all three representatives of these practices. Our first panelist will be Rahul Gore. Rahul Gore is from Opolis Architects. Rahul Gore studied at CEPT, Center for Environmental Planning and Technology in Ahmedabad, and he's completed his master's degree in urban design at the University of California in Los Angeles. Opolis was founded in 2001, and I also kind of interned and worked at Opolis. I'm very happy to see the graph of the office in the last 15 years, and it's a great opportunity to have you, Rahul. So Rahul and Sonal set up Opolis in 2001, which is a multidisciplinary firm, and since then the firm has grown from strength to strength. It has won several awards, national as well as international, which have been widely published also. Opolis has successfully completed the Bihar Museum Patna project, which was also won as an international competition along with Maki and Associates in Tokyo. And Opolis is in cooperation with, is in collaboration with Ratan Batliboy, which is currently engaged in the two museums, the Gujarat Vandana Museum and the Museum for Royal Kingdoms of India, both are in Kevadia, Gujarat. Our second panelist for today is Supriya Tyagarajan. Supriya Tyagarajan is an architect who graduated from Kamla Raheja Vidyanidhi Institute of Architecture and completed her MSc in Construction and Economics from UCL London. With more than 20 years of experience working in India and internationally, Supriya brings expertise in projects with major clients across Southeast Asia and also globally. She's dedicated to maintaining important relationships and building new ones, and she's instrumental in the growth and success of managing projects of Perkins Eastman Mumbai studio. She brings in strategic planning and management expertise in projects, helping clients understand programming and making relevant decisions for success of the project. She also serves on the board of Perkins Eastman as an executive director and has been a strong voice championing women in the built environment. And our third panelist for today is Aparna Khemani. Aparna is an architect and design practice leader with over 25 years of experience partnering with clients for successful delivery of projects in workplace, commercial, corporate, cultural, education, and residential sectors, primarily in India and the USA. She is passionate about how early conceptual ideas are reinforced through development and realized in built form. Her key strength is design collaboration and management to achieve a high standard of design documentation and implementation. Aparna holds a Master of Architecture degree from University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee in USA, and a graduate diploma in architecture from India, Mumbai. Aparna worked in Madison, Wisconsin for 11 years after receiving her master's degree, and then returned to her hometown, Mumbai, in 2011. She is currently working with Gensler. May I please request the speakers, if you would like to, be seated there for the presentation. Okay, and may I please request Aparna to deliver her presentation first. For the evening, we'll do a round of presentations by all the practices and then open the panel discussion and a conversation with the audience. So, Aparna.
Hi everyone, good evening. I'm really excited to be here. Nothing more refreshing than being at a college with young energy, people who are enthusiastic and really keen to learn. So thank you for having me. A little bit about me, but I think this statement really captures my life to date. Plan all you want, but also be open to serendipity. So, as you plan your lives, your career, there's always a plan. But, really opportunity happens to those who welcome it. So this has been my trajectory. I'm an architect from Amchi, Mumbai. Had no idea that I would ever study abroad, go abroad. 1 year before I went abroad, if you ask me, I'd be like, what? No, me? No, never. But as luck would have it, my professors, my bosses, wherever I'd interned, etc., they encouraged me. They said, why don't you try for your master's, etc. And one thing led to another, and 1 year later, I was in UW Milwaukee in Wisconsin. I had no idea how cold can be. I had never heard of the place. We didn't have internet like you guys have. I had no idea what to expect. It was really an adventure, but totally worth it. I think what my master's taught me was self-discovery. It's not so much the knowledge that I learned, but forming my own process for design and understanding, finding my voice, right? And then I thought that maybe I'll get some work experience there and then, make my way back to India. And next thing you know, 11 years have passed. But I had an amazing time there. I worked at a firm called Flad Architects. It had about 300 people. And they even had engineers, structural engineers, landscape architects in-house. My first boss had spent 40 years at the firm. And we went to a client meeting and he says, between the two of us, we have an average of 20 years of experience. So my 0 and his 40 divide by 2. So I've been blessed with mentors like that who have allowed me to, run and jump into things and really put my hand up and take it on, right? So I laid a very good foundation in Madison, Wisconsin, where I learned everything. So the 2 projects you see, those are really my key career projects, because right from the time that the client gave the brief to ribbon cutting, like 6 years later, 5 years later, right, I was constant on the project. So cycling through from concept to scheme design, all the way through documentation, construction administration, and then even helping the client afterwards for problems that crop up. It just made me a better designer, because then like later on, oh, if I had thought of this at concept or scheme, it'll just make for a better project. So that was my journey in the US. There were many other projects, but these were the 2 key projects for me. And then I felt, okay, that's been a long time. I want to come back Mumbai is where I belong. I wanted to really come back. And again, serendipity struck. Um, it so happened that Canon Design had just opened an office in Mumbai, and they reached out to me, and I interviewed. I got the job. I landed here, and we had a great time. Starting, I think I was the sixth employee, and then we grew up to 30. And here also, I was very fortunate to cycle through projects right from concept to completion. So we had, I don't know, maybe 10, 50 million square feet of architectural projects built in those, significant 5 years of my career. Um, After that, a cultural planning firm approached me. So they were working on the Bihar Museum, Patna Science City, etc. And they were doing cultural strategy, exhibition design. Um, Honestly, I had not worked on those typologies ever in my life. But what they wanted was the experience of, the running full cycle of projects, mentoring teams, client relationships. By now, between FLAD and Canon, I had gone from a junior architect, to a leader in the office. And I joined Lord, and very quickly learned a lot about culture and museums, and those are amazing projects. I think Rahul will show those more, but really had the time of my life, very multidisciplinary. And after that, I joined Gensler. It's been now 6 years. And it's almost like all of these very random things have all added up for me to be really confident in my job today, running a practice, growing a business, gaining the client's trust, and mentoring teams here in Mumbai for a global design firm. So through my career, you know, I've worked on sciences, offices, industrial projects, culture museums, IT parks, interior design, schools, colleges, residential, retail, mixed use, etc. But besides the different typologies, it's also the different stages of a project. It's also different roles. And there's just so much to learn, even going forward. Not working. There we go. So why am I at Gensler, and why be with a global practice? Firstly, I think it's different for everyone. Um, I don't think there is one size fits all, or it's this is better than that. There's nothing like that, right? Each of us comes with our unique experiences and where we feel comfortable and what works for us, right? What I love about um, being in a global practice is the ability to have real large scale impact, right? Because Gensler is a firm which is in 57 offices worldwide. In India, we have 2 offices, and um, we're really able to connect all the dots. So if you talk about resilience and sustainability, all of us in 57 offices are working together. If you talk about design technology and tools to design, really at a higher level, and using technology to really enhance your design prowess, there also you have an advantage. And I love meeting people from all over the world. I think that's just something, maybe because of having lived abroad and having friends who were from different countries, that really drives me. So the culture of collaboration. The other thing I learned was that there's no one way to do things, right? Like when I was in India, it was like, oh, this is always done this way, right? When I went, like for example, if we in college ever put a toilet on an interior face of a building, straight away I would not have cleared that design studio, right? But when I went abroad, they were like, what? You're putting toilets on the exterior walls? Why are you wasting facade? They need to be inside. And I was like, wait, what? So I learned that there's no one way to do it. It's all context. It's all about what works for that climate, that culture, those people. And I think those things really help me to still remain open-minded. And I think also, the ability to have that scale of impact really drives me, right? So the way we work is we have 57 offices all over the world, and it is not that it is a US-based practice that is running a US way of doing architecture or design in all these countries, right? Our founder said you can't be global if you're not local first. So we are in these locations all over just to serve our clients in their context, in their culture, etc. Thank you. In their culture, and essentially that's how we work. And globally also we have one P&L. So it really allows me to pull a designer from Miami because a sea-facing residential development in Mumbai has a context which is very similar, right? Or an expert in entertainment from, say, Florida or Vegas for an entertainment client in India who wants to set up a development like that. The other thing that I really enjoy in a global firm is connecting all the dots and the research. So we're constantly conducting surveys in different geographies. We've recently done a City Pulse survey, which shows, what makes cities magnetic. Why do people stay? And, why do people leave cities? So there's a lot of stuff out there, and we generously share with everybody. But this is what drives, because that research, that understanding, the analysis of that helps us predict the trends and helps us to design timeless buildings that will stand for a long time, because they're not pertinent only for today, but even for tomorrow. So I'll just go through some context. So this is a university in Gurgaon. We've been designing a couple campuses for this client. I'm sorry, I have to say confidential everywhere to honor my client's wishes, but essentially it is extremely local. We are using local materials. We are looking at the climate, etc. But at the same time, those global best practices, or what is a university after COVID in a hybrid way. Today also we are having a hybrid lecture. Like, how do you design spaces that facilitate, it doesn't matter where you're attending college from. So all of that is also incorporated in here. Sometimes we have global clients who have workplaces all over the globe, including India. So these are called GCCs, and they want to have a parity for their workplace, whether it's London or New York or Mumbai or Tokyo or Hong Kong. And so they would like to come to a firm like Gensler, because the designers can work behind the scenes and make the office in Mumbai also fit into the set. But also it's their office in India. So it's not that it looks like the London office or it looks like the New York office. There is maybe, say, the core workplaces which are global and functional, but then all of the social spaces where people gather, etc., very, very Indian. So it's comforting, and people, feel rooted in place. This is actually for an Indian client, but they also came to a global firm because they really wanted to have a global outlook for their headquarter. And they're a real estate developer, and they really wanted to showcase not just the products that they were designing and developing, but also how they work to their potential customers. So this project was designed just before COVID and it was constructed during COVID. And the client is super happy with how it turned out. So this was a collaboration between our San Francisco office and our India offices. Sometimes clients want to have a global firm design for them because today, to be honest, we are all global citizens, right? Like India, I mean, we are all consuming OTT, we've traveled, the world is much smaller. And so this client of ours in Mumbai, they have this huge mixed-use project in the Mumbai region. And essentially, it's got a high street retail, it's got some residential towers, it's got a hotel, it's got commercial office. And, you know, they had some references of what their aspiration was. And we partnered with them and our Los Angeles office to realize it. But it's very, very local as well, right? Like how we live is not how Americans live. So it is an Indian apartment, it is an Indian resident. And the other thing I love about being at a global firm is technology, right? Like we have plug and play technology across the globe, and you know, whether it's sustainable design, we're looking at solar radiation, daylight penetration, low carbon, embodied carbon. We have some in-house proprietary tools that allow designers very early on in design to know where your project is going to land before the sustainability consultant comes on board. And this is another education project in Greater Noida where we applied some of that software, and it advised, you know, on where you should have windows, how much percentage of windows, what kind of materials, what is the quality of space in you know, the amenity spaces or the classrooms or the offices, and so on. So I'll just sum it up. Through my career so far, what I've learned is lay a strong foundation, like really rock solid, cycle through projects, etc. Always be curious and open-minded. My one mentor said the only stupid question is the one you didn't ask, right? And draw from your interests, not just design and architecture, but if you like nature and trekking, or you're a drummer, or you're an artist, whatever your passion, bring that in also into your work. And have a plan, but also be nimble to pivot and take advantage. Wherever you are, you can learn. And deeply understand the problem statement. Like, what does your client want? What are you trying to solve? It's not design for design's sake, but there's a certain purpose, and always be true to that. Leverage technology and research, always strive for excellence. There's no point doing anything half-hearted. Always do the right thing by our planet, by our people, by your clients. You know, as designers, we can influence a lot. And learning never stops. And similarly, just like I have learned from my teachers, my mentors, my bosses, like pass it on. Future generations, your peers, your colleagues, because that's what our industry is all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aparna, for that crisp presentation. May I please request Supriya to...
Hi, good evening. I hope I'm heard. There's certain nervousness about speaking in front of students, so let me know if things are flowing fine. So what I'm going to do is a little different. It's through the work that the firm is doing. I'm going to talk about the opportunities and challenges we have. So it's not like because it's an international practice, we are working here, we've had it all figured out. So last 15 years has been a journey for me as well. And every few years, there have been changes, to structural changes that we have instituted within the firm to make sure that we stay relevant, right? And when I say we, I'm talking about the firm here. I have been with the firm now for over 13 years, so I've kind of seen the journey. Very quickly, what is Perkins? Perkins Eastman was started in 1981. So it's more than 4 decades old. And we have offices all over the world. Mumbai is a studio. So Mumbai studio was established to serve India, specifically India as a marketplace. We have different practice areas. Now, if it's a 100,000 people firm, there are experts in different practice areas. So when I say practice areas, different typology of projects. And a lot of these typologies have come about and have also now transformed, right? So some of these, there's a lot of convergence that is happening between these practice areas as well. But yes, we practice under higher education. We do healthcare projects, we do senior living projects, and that's essentially been our focus area in India. Human by design is our tagline, so doesn't matter what project we're doing or where it's located. The emphasis has always been on human experience. And that's, if we are able to enhance the human experience for all user groups within the built environment, that's where we found ourselves to be successful. This is the Mumbai studio. We are here, we are 40 people strong. And I'll slowly get to why even the Mumbai studio was established. These are some of the projects that we've worked on. But why? I mean, why would an international practice decide to just come and pick a region, pick a place, pick a country? Is this just jumping on its own? Maybe I put it on timer for 10 minutes. Anyway, so if it jumps again, yeah, it is jumping. Do you want to stop the... Anyway, why would an international practice decide to come? There are a lot of factors, and what were the factors for Perkins Eastman? 2008 was when there was a global recession, right? There was a financial crisis. There was not enough work in the country that Perkins Eastman started off, which is the USA. And we needed to look at other geographies where you would get work, right? So that was look at developing economies, whether it was China, whether it was India, and other parts of the world, simply because you had to, again, stay relevant, stay survive. So it is not a decision made just because we've decided to go to India. It's based on certain factors. The other big factor was, can we add value? And is there something we can do which is going to have a meaningful impact? Right? Which is why probably we never went to Europe. Europe already had, it is a talent-rich environment, it had a lot of good practices, and it was a place where we didn't feel like we could add value. So India was a choice. Also, you have to love the place that you work. So I think that, again, became a huge factor. The culture of the country was something that the leaders of our organization were taken with. The hospitality, the ability to be agile, the geopolitical situation, you can truly be an entrepreneur in India, right? So I think that's something that was very palpable right from the beginning. And to top it off, we had a few leaders who were willing to move to India at that time, and we could build an office around them. So it just doesn't happen that you pick up and you go. These are all factors that come together when you're choosing to build an office in a different country. What is the easiest way to then enter the market, right? Competitions. And when you don't have a lot of work back home, you do a lot of competitions, and that's what we did. And this is one of the first competitions we did. Bhendi Bazaar is a project that all of you all should be familiar with and will be familiar with. It is in our city. It's an example of a trust-led, community-led development. And we were brought in to compete for this project. Again, the way we were able to address problems were because people on our team who were working on this project were familiar with Bombay. We're familiar with issues of density, we're familiar with issues of livelihood, we're familiar with issues of how important this project is going to be. So we were brought in as master planners, and then we partnered and collaborated with a local architect. The project is still ongoing. Of course, it had stresses of local economy, it had stresses of changing regulations, and things will definitely not look like what they look on the picture today, but there were foundations laid of how the master plan would evolve. These were some of the earlier renderings and images that we showed them. The second project that sort of, again, a competition that we won was for Indian School of Business, Mohali. Now, this was a business school. They were trying to set up something where their aspirations was to be like a Harvard or a Harvard Business School or a Columbia Business School, and that's why the choice was to go for an American architect and say, can you design a business school for us? And that's what we did. We did the master plan. And again, we partnered with a local firm in India to deliver this project, which was just the phase one. Now, of course, the challenges of doing projects in India was not lost on us, right? You have to understand local regulations, you have to understand clients' needs, you have to understand construction methods, and you have to truly service the client. So some of these, while look really pretty images, there are issues. There are issues where weather wasn't taken care of. I mean, if it rains in this courtyard, it rains and it pours, and it does become a problem. And then to continuously service a client and a project through the life cycle of a project, you need to be here. And that wasn't lost on the firm. So the challenges we saw was the scope of work, because if you're just the initial designer and then you bring in a local architect and then you're not involved, you yourself don't learn enough through the life cycle of a project. You have lesser design oversight, so sometimes there is dilution of design going from one stage to another. The learning that happens through cross collaboration is cut short, and the client is highly dissatisfied. The users of the project are highly dissatisfied. So the choice then was should we set up a Mumbai office, and that's what we did. Then we did another project, which was the leadership of ISB Mohali decided to set up another university in India, and this is Ashoka University. This is a 25-acre campus, and it was one of the first liberal arts university in India. And that again, probably the assumption or the reason why clients would come to an American firm was our firm was very experienced in designing liberal arts campuses in the US, and they had similar aspirations of bringing that educational system to India, not necessarily the architecture. So if you look at pictures of this project, it doesn't, it's very rooted in its context. We had to go through several workshops to understand what it truly means to design building in this context. Use of materials that are going to outlive us as designers. I have worked personally on this project for over 11 years. And then again, choice of materials, issues of sustainability. And if all of the things then was put together to come to bring the architectural language for this university together. So it's very rooted to where it is. This is a stone jali, which is water jet cut. And so again, it ages very gracefully, some of these materials that have been used. But again, it's we collaborated with, because this is a large project, we collaborated with multiple local architects. So while we stayed as the principal designer and we did drawings up to a certain stage, we continued being with the client till the end, but not really drawing certain parts of the project. And then when you lose control over that too, there is a lot of dilution in design. Or there are, again, stresses of cost, stresses of changes, stresses of enrollment changes that you don't have any control as an architect. So this is one of the examples where we did choose to stay till the end of the project, but not with, again, collaborated with local architects on several. these are some of the images. This was a reverse project where we didn't have the expertise. A client, ISKCON, actually came to us and said, we have a large parcel of land. This is 72 acres in Vrindavan. And we want to set up a university that teaches Indian scriptures and Vedas and things like that. And I was like, I have no idea how to do this. This is far removed from anything I have done in the past. This is even our team in India. Like, nobody knew what to do with this project, but we had to serve the client. Incidentally, the college I went to had recently conducted a study tour to Vrindavan. I think it was they did a study and they put together very good documentation. And then one of the professors there was somebody we enjoyed working with. So we said, Vandana, would you like to come and work on this project? And she was the one who guided the entire design. So while, again, the client came to us as an international architect who has a lot of experience doing universities, we had no idea how to make it happen in a way that it, again, is relevant to them. So the narrative of the project was crafted through our understanding of the study trip documentation and all of these design. The design was set around 7 vanas again through the mythology of that region. And this is what it looks like. I mean, this is what we had eventually rendered it as the visual for the project. This was all happening while we are one office or two office at Perkins Eastman working with our India office. But there came a time when there were 7 offices at Perkins Eastman who had to come together. And this was a large project. This was All India Institute of Medical Sciences. 3 big projects, 1,000-bed hospital with academic facilities, with housing, all of that, all starting simultaneously. Now, there is no way that we could have done this if we hadn't collaborated, even internally. So we were working across 4 time zones, and this is all pre-COVID. We were figuring out how to work through with 7 different offices. But what really became important was the role of our local office. It wasn't only to be the day-to-day coordinator for the project and for the client, but also we had to take on a big role to lessen the gap between what is understood as healthcare delivery in India versus what is delivered in the US. So that cultural gap we had to constantly play that role to close that cultural gap. Like when we kept telling our colleagues back in the US saying, don't assume that one patient is going to come with one caregiver. One patient in AIIMS will land up with 5 caregivers. Now, how do you take care of those 5 caregivers? People don't know how to read emergency. They don't know how to read OPD. They just know that they need to get medical attention first. How do we make sure that they navigate through this maze? I mean, hospitals are not an environment that by any means is a calming environment. It's very chaotic, you're stressed. And how do you make sure that all of that is addressed? And I think we had constant conversations with our team back home saying, this is what is going to happen. If you just let the main gate of the hospital be the main gate of the hospital, everyone's just going to be dropped there, then what do you do? Right? So we had to take certain decisions of making sure that they enter the campus and then they are segregated. It's easier for people to walk through. There are places of respite even within the campus and things like that. So this was very, very, very intense. Like in 12 months, we had to deliver design for all 3. We were also again, prime designers, partnered with a local architect because this couldn't have just been done by us. And we also had like 20 consultants under us who we had to manage. So it kind of grew up with this project. Also working for the Ministry of Health was not the most pleasant experience. I mean, you had to figure out how to also deal with different kind of expectations and different level of it's not a private client. We have different set of priorities that we had to address. So this was huge learning for us. And these were 3 different locations. Also, how do you create design for 3, prototyping them, but yet making sure that they look different and they talk to the context. So then the challenges of work again remain scope of work, because we weren't really fully being architects in this country. Client satisfaction for the same reason became huge. But one of the main things that happened was people who worked for us at some point said, I would just don't want to be a designer. I want to see a project built. I want to go to site. I want to understand what the construction is. I want to be able to cut ribbon. I want to be, and those things we couldn't yet do because either the clients were, the market was not ready to pay our fees, which is substantially higher than local architects. And also there were stresses about international architects can't work in India for, to do full scope. Both these sort of went away naturally, I think, because there was nothing said and written. But also all the architects we collaborated with now had that we transferred that knowledge over to them as well. So they started becoming our local competition as well. So now we are here, we have collaborated, but we've also, while we learn from them, they've also learned from us. So now we've become, we are in a strange place where we're literally competing with everyone who's here. So that also become, and then again, the life cycle of a project, right? So again, like Aparna said, we had to take a decision that, while we are a global firm, this is a local firm. This is a local office. There are people in India who work here. The aspirations of people who work with us is to do a project in India, is to see a completion of a project in India, and learn the whole life cycle. So over the last, I would say 3 years, we've started to do projects that are full scope. So when I mean full scope is all the way from concepts to construction documentation and even going to site, etc. Here now we have started, instead of collaborating, we form a team in India and we only bring in experts where we need them to help us out. So the clients have started, and also, of course, over the last 15 years, they have formed relationships with us where they say, we don't care who you bring, we want to work with you. And you means the local office. We like you, we trust you. Whoever you want to bring as an international designer is up to you. So now that trust has been built, and we are able to now do, even though we had never done residential projects in India before, just because of that client's trust, now we are able to do some of the projects for developer clients, which we had never done. So this is one in Bangalore. This would be our first project that would be coming up on the ground, where we are full architects on this, a complete architect. And this is another one in Goa, which is a 72-acre land, and then it has villas and a hotel. And again, it's designing for what the client wants, right? So there is no architectural style that we conform to. And then again, we continue to service our university. So if you look at all the images, there is no prescribed style of architecture, what evolves in discussion with the client. This is again a school of business that we do. So again, the challenges continue. Now we have local competition, but then we also have to compete with the local fee, right? Because now we are no longer an international firm, or not perceived as an international firm, because everybody is now working in, it's the same playing field, right? Technology is putting a lot of pressure on us, while we do, like as a large firm, we do have a bandwidth to adapt to technology. The adaptation is really slow. In fact, a smaller firm they're much more agile to move from one software to another. But if we have to institute a software like AI, we're not able to do it as quickly as we would like to, because you have to take care of data, you have to take care of client privacy, you have to take care of training 1,000 people and all of that. So I feel like technology is now starting to put pressure on us. The global economy now is, again, there's again reverse pressure because things have dried up in the West and now everyone's attention is here. So you will see influx of international firms coming into India now, again. Right, so this is competition from local competition from our competitors globally as well, and my biggest challenge, the next generation. So if the first project I showed, Ashoka University, I stood on that project like 11 years. I cannot imagine to convince anyone today to say, wait for 11 years to see your first project through. I mean, it's going to be impossible. You're all smiling, but it's the truth. Keeping the next generation, and by no means I'm saying that this is a bad thing, because I think showing value of what you're doing, making sure that they continuously, or you continuously see value in what you're doing. Our projects do take longer, so the gratification and satisfaction of having to do a project, which was again quicker when we did shorter scope, but now that we're doing full scope, people are like, do I really have to wait for 5 years to see my project through? Every 2 months, they're like, can you put me on another project? And I was like, doesn't happen. You have to stick to one thing. So that's been a challenge. But in all of this, I think then the way to mitigate that is to at least make sure that you provide for a really good place to work, right? Whether it's your peers, whether it's the culture of the firm, the value system in the firm, celebrating diversity, celebrating festivals, celebrating each other, providing mentorship, providing guidance. I mean, these are all things that we feel like that we're doing the right things. That's why people continue to be around. But I think it's a very hard profession. So just making it a little easier every single day for you to come to work is something that I feel like gives me sleepless nights. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aparna. Lots of things to take from your, sorry, sorry, Supriya. We'll move on to our last presentation by Rahul. Rahul, would you like to sit there and present? Okay.
Try and stick to the time limit that Anuj gave of 10 minutes. That's it. No, so we'll see how it goes. Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. It's always good to present in front of students. For me, students are the heart, and this is in between. I just go a couple of slides back. But, Opolis actually is completing 25 years in January, so it's a great time for us to look back, and I think all these presentations always are fantastic. It helps you to put things in perspective, and 25 years just go like this. So it was not long back before we were in school, but why our name, Opolis, we get asked that very often, right? So polis is, of course, comes from the Greek word city, and O comes from our experiences in Japan, where O is put as a suffix for anything with respect. So and cha is tea, but it's always ocha, o mizu, o kudasai. Obasan is for grandfather, obi-san. So O comes from there, and then of course we thought it's pretty cool. But also I think we hear all kinds of jokes. Who's the O and who's the police of the firm? So it was started by Sonal and me. For 23 years, we've been based out of Mumbai in Kalina, Santa Cruz. That was our team in Bombay. It's grown now. We've done projects across India. Our documentation standards are very good, but we were growing out of space. And then in the last 2 years, we've also set up a studio in Pune, and it's got greenery outside, and it's on the ground floor. It's always a dream. So that's been a good, exciting 2 years. So I thought I've put this across as kind of 4 pieces, but I'll go very fast through them. But the roots is very important to me, especially when we are presenting in a school, because I think our roots were BRAC and CEPT. And we were fortunate to be there in the golden period, as I call it. Varki and Chaya were there at the prime. They had just come back. Varki had set up the systems, and Sonal and me landed up there in 1990. We were there till 1996, 97. And I think it was a fantastic time. We had a lot of fun with Doshi. He visited us in LA. That's with him at SOC. And then whenever I go back to CEPT, it's always a pleasure to be there. Our schoolmates who taught us a lot. Our batch was privileged. We have people like Tanush Goenka, my roommate. He's now heading Kerry Hill in Singapore. Jason in Bhutan. Meeta Vagesh and Champaka in Bangalore, Rohit Vandani in Delhi, somebody in Chennai. So, I think CEPT was really a national institute at that time. And we've had so many of our colleagues now, they're either international. In Ahmedabad, there's a whole bunch who's doing amazing work. And I think we always learn from each other. So I think what you'll have here, that's the energy you'll have. You don't know what you'll keep learning from each other. Keep at that. Our thesis projects were very important. They were, still passionate, and that's Sonal's project. If I look back, it's always, I think they're still the best projects we did. I did my thesis on Nadi Gandhi. We have a research thesis at CEPT, and I think these are all hand drawings measured through 4 buildings. Nadi's buildings didn't have drawings, but what this taught us, the rigor and learnings from architecture were fantastic. So I think the school years are always very important. And along with that, travels. I think CEPT taught us to treasure our travels, be it in India, be it international. I think those are things you should never lose opportunities to do, to travel as students, or seeing architecture, modern architecture, just to see light spaces. It's a pleasure, right? So I think use that time. Mentors are always important. We were, like I mentioned, besides Varki, Chaya, Doshi, also when we started practice and we did our training, I did with Rahul Mehrotra, Christopher Benninger, Sonal worked with. But one of our teacher who taught us most is Professor Shimizu, who is from Japan. He really taught us about life. Then with Maki, we've done work and life, so it's been fun. So architecture is really the sum of past experiences. We truly believe that. That's a small note that Maki wrote for us in 2012. We had just won the BR Museum competition with him, and he said, "Be slow, but steady life is long," right? So we've been talking of 11 years of projects, and I said 25 years, but I think as architecture, it's a slow profession. Learn to enjoy it, learn to absorb it. Things happen, they happen for the better. So that's 25 years. We just tried to kind of map some things. All the projects on the top are basically houses. Bottom are projects that we've done in collaboration. Some of the ones in pink are also public projects. Blues are institutional projects, but the one at the bottom is collaboration. And you'll see as across 25 years, we've been collaborating right throughout, right? In 2003, I looked at an urban design competition with 4 other colleagues. Thereafter, we've been doing work in collaboration right through. When COVID hit in 2020, you'll see there's a small dip in houses, but thereafter there's been a boom again, right? So all houses has been a mainstay, and the collaborative work has helped us to kind of work on larger projects. That's been always an aspiration. How do you grow? How do you make a larger practice? How do you make an impact? And those are potentials that we've had. A lot of our work is houses, like I said, and being in Bombay, there's developer work, but there are architects at the tip of your fingerprints you can count who are doing that work. Most of us have survived building between this space between Bombay and Pune, and I think you all had a whole seminar based on that. So that's something that we call Conversations with Landscape. There's a small video maybe you can play it now. Let me just minimize this. And I thought instead of showing the houses, let it just 2 minutes to get a sense of what we do. Not so relevant to today's talk, but it'll help us to just put you'll have to escape this. Get out of this presentation. There's a timeline at the bottom. So we try to put them houses across the 25 years. So each house is actually a labor of love, right? And we've done close to now, I think, around 35 houses. Each house is, it's become now actually, it's a pain, but it's also a stress buster. Because I think there are fewer stakeholders, it's easier to discuss, and it's also more importantly a place where you can actually pursue your design sensibility. Each house is a progression. We've developed one after the other, and I think that's something that you can, as a genre of work, leave behind. It's a pleasure to see that. Along with that, of course, we are in cities, and we end up doing urban projects. Sorry. Yeah. So there's a very small house in Chembur. Actually, it's the only house we've done in Bombay. It's a row house. It's the end of a row house. So it's the third house, but it just has a lovely conversation with the nature outside in Deonar. Next. Next. Yeah, go on. We also do offices. I think I'm not going to show that, but what in this office we did last year, 24. We innovated one thing which I thought I should bring out. You know, the whole facade had greenery. Go on next door. So it had 3 sides where we could put in greenery and actually real plants. But what importantly we've done is we've kind of used the condensation water from these air conditioners to actually plant this. So there is actually drip irrigation happening there, and you are able to use the water that's being generated from the air conditioning to water these plants. Yeah, and then it had to be engineered, you have to monitor it, etc. So all that was really fun. Okay, go on, next. This brings me to, I mean, more relevant to today's talk is BR Museum, where we collaborated with Maki. It's something, actually, it's a continuation of a studio for us. I was at Maki's studio in 97, 98, 99. And having worked there for a year, when we came back, set up Opolis, there was a competition, and obviously our credentials in 10 years were not enough to kind of be able to participate in the competition. What we did is we collaborated with Maki, to do this project. And we were just genuinely just asking Maki, would he be interested? And he said, yeah, sure, why not? And that's how it started. So there was Foster, there was Coop Himmelblau, each one had an Indian associate. So Foster's was with CP Kukreja, Coop Himmelblau was with Archom, Snoeta was with Space Matters, and Studio Labiskin was with Morphogenesis, right? And Maki and Associates and Opolis, we ended up winning this competition. But for me, it was more important was my time back in 98, 99, when we spent a year in the studio. And there were two things that I really learned there that were different from what we do in India. One was that working drawings out there are made in conjunction with the contractor. So you take it to schematic design, DD sometimes, or before the tender, the contractor comes on board, and then the drawings are made together. So what happens there is, it's actually one team. It's not a you and I situation, which is what is in India is. And then the second thing was to achieve that kind of finesse and excellence in design, the actual team that's worked on the project moves to the site. Okay, so what that does is it really brings out the best, because each architect takes full ownership, and it's like Supriya said, she stood on site for 11 years. Every single project is done that way. Now, when it came to India, I promised Maki that we can't do the first one because it's a tender and a government procurement process, but we'll make sure that we have our team at the site in Patna. And Patna was a different city at that time. It was 20 years behind rest of India. Even now when you visit, it's, I mean, still 5 to 8 years behind rest of India. But this project went across a very time was of crucial importance. It was political backing. It had to get done within the period of a government. So what we did was, it had 1 year of intense design and then 3 years for execution. We had within the first 1 year, we had 3 workshops, one in Mumbai, one in Tokyo, one in Patna, where each and every collaborator, stakeholder sat across tables, trashed out issues. And from there, we generated actually a lump sum contract. This was unheard of in government circles, an architectural project being done by lump sum. And that was Mahindra Raj, our structural consultant, who advised us that if he saw the drawings coming from Maki's office, and he said, if you want to get this building built, you have to eliminate the engineer at the ground level, the person who's going to measure and certify your work. You have to try and get it as a lump sum contract. So it was a big risk we took. Personally, I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't even know who an executive engineer is, chief engineer, nothing in the government hierarchies, just landed up and learned along the way. So I think there's nothing that can, and that too in Patna. If it was Bombay, Delhi, it's a different ball. But Patna was it's a completely different volume. But I think just jumping in, diving in and learning was fantastic. So that's how the museum sits. That's the Ganga River at the background. That's Patna city, and that's 13.5 acres. High courts on the right hand side. And the idea of the building was a collection of buildings as against an iconic structure, which, you know, every star architect is expected to make an iconic structure. But I think Maki's philosophy of collective form and his thinkings and his learnings, which he has practiced in the Daikaniyama district of Tokyo, was what was actually this project was a perfect. Maki's been coming here for 50 years. 1958, he was a Graham Fellow when he met Doshi, and he went to see Corbusier and other things. And he's been coming here regularly. So he really cherished India, and he wanted to make something here. I won't get into the buildings. It's a usual museum building, but the canopy here is a 25 meter by 25 meter balanced cantilever. That's the entrance lobby space. And this was the genius of Mahindra Raj. This is a 35 meter span drum, concrete drum, 600 mm RCC walls with an elliptical cutout in the center. The whole slab is actually a suspended slab, right? And it went on to become a lovely space for the children's gallery. And then integrating landscape from outside was always important. I think what's unique in this museum is there are 7 courtyards. There are a lot of museums across the world with courtyards, but I think there's not a single one which has 7 courtyards. And I think each one of these courtyards came about from its geometry, either from the setback, the site shape, or it was a design space, or it was just a residue from the masses that came up. But each one then had character, each one had different materials, scale, and the sound levels. You know, Patna is the most noisiest city. People are honking there. It's like just you go there and it's completely chaos. But each of these courtyards, especially the one where you move towards the end, the sound levels, the way they change as you move to the spaces, it's amazing. So these are some of those courtyards. This is that final courtyard. So there's completely white from the inside. It's dark from the outside. It uses cotton steel and granite and white sandstone on the inside. And then this is the most intense design space where one moves from the lower level to the upper level. It's primarily a ground plus one-story structure. So this is the only staircase that was there. It has a skylight and then a lovely artwork that's been put in there. So the galleries themselves are black boxes. This was what was Aparna's team was working on at that time. This picture is taken before the galleries were fitted out. But for us, the most important spaces were these spaces outside, the cloister spaces which you experience as you move from gallery to gallery, where you experience the time of the day, the daylight, and generally give a relief from the intense gallery spaces. These were actually mock-ups that were done, and the learnings were there. It was L&T's first project in Bihar, so that itself was a challenge. But I think for us, eventually getting this building built was the key, and experience large span spaces like this. When the first time we built it, it was fantastic. So the cotton steel, actually there was a weathering yard where all the panels were hung for 6 months. They were weathered and then the building were put on the building. Yeah, that's Mr. Maki inspecting the weathering yard. So for us, that was the most exciting part of the project, doing the construction, spending 4 years there. Like I said, we had a team there in rotation. Patna was a tough city, so we had 4 people working, and at any point of time, 3 people were there and 1 person was in the Bombay office. And we should keep rotating. I personally spent almost a week to 2 weeks every month in Patna during this period. And then a lot of competitions, right? So BR Museum, we were lucky. The first competition, large competition we did, we actually went on to win. Thereafter, we did Nalanda, the Bahudaji Lad Museum, Amravati, Science City Patna, the Jain Museum in Kamshet, Bal Thackeray Memorial, Museum for Marathi Theatre. So during COVID 2020 to 22, we did a lot of competitions. And I mean, we were literally, our team was tired and exhausted. And then came an opportunity in 22 for a competition for the Gujarat State Museum and a museum for the Royal Kingdoms in Gujarat. We were literally not going to participate, but our team said, let's do it one last time. And I think we ended up doing that. Ratan, we collaborated with RJBCPL. Smith is here, who's heading this project from Ratan's office. And again, there was Perkins Eastman here. There was INI Studio, Blocker and Blocker from Germany, and Flying Elephant and Gurjeet from Bangalore. I'm not going to show the projects, but that's basically one museum. It's a kilometer before the Statue of Unity, and the second museum is 2 kilometers before the Statue of Unity. Both the museums sit on either side of the Narmada. We've just breaking ground as we speak on this one. Construction scheduled to start October 1 on the left-hand side, and the other one is now in tender. So every step in a government project you make, you finish concept, schematic, DD, it's celebration time. You don't know when projects can stall. So we just keep our fingers crossed. Yeah? So that's where the Statue of Unity is. That's the site for the Morki, and that's the site for the GVM. And that's the other museum, the Gujarat Vandana Museum, which is now in tender. So this is larger. This is 3 lakh square feet. So it's the size of the Bihar Museum. And the other one's half the size of the Bihar Museum. Just some snippets of the spaces that are coming up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh yeah, can someone help me switch off the projector? It's coming on my face. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. And one of the reasons I did not interfere, despite the fact that you overshot, was that there was so much to see and learn from. Because this is a territory which is completely unfamiliar to me, and but at the same time, I've been very curious because I must say that we are running these lectures also as a course in the school, and we often struggle to kind of talk about these things. So I think all of you actually brought we can start talking about practice and its transformation in the last 20 years. And I've made a lot of notes, as you can see, but something that I would like to collectively open up with you all is, and also to preface it with the fact that I was thinking when both Aparna and Supriya were showing the universities, and I was thinking that we also had the IIM, which was an international architect, and the sensibility that we have in that building is markedly different from the ones that we see today. And they are still being built by international firms. And that's where the question of the global lies. That there, I mean, we have here, one situation where a certain idea of rootedness and contextuality is set for us, or a template is given to us by an international architect in the 60s and 70s. And then we have another template which is almost kind of forming, which we call global, you know and so I wanted to understand and unpack this term global with you all, that what are we, I mean, there's certainly an idea of change that we are pursuing, and it is dubbed in a very kind of loose way, to be lumped as global. And so what are we really departing from when we depart from a Khan of IIM to a Perkins Eastman and a Gensler who is bringing this global sensibility in India? So if you would like to comment on something that kind of changes.
So I think global really is not a foreign designer coming in and saying this is how a university should be. Global best practices means throughout the world, technology has moved on, culture has moved on, how we learn has moved on. And so it is about bringing what is current. I mean, when, say, Qutub Minar was built or Taj Mahal was built, it was a cutting edge building of its time, right? It was using the newest technology in structure. These are all engineering marvels, or say the pyramids in Egypt. They were very local, but they were cutting edge, right? So global just means that you have a view of what is happening everywhere, and whatever fits our context, our people, our lifestyle, our culture, to be able to adopt that as well, just as we all are using mobile phones like everyone else in the world. So there's no like transplantation or kind of forced, like this is how you should do it. It's more of a very natural progression. And global just means that there could be innovative ways in Japan, for instance, like how they do construction, that will solve a problem here, right? So you have an open mind and you're able to think differently and really solve a problem rather than solve it the way you were doing it before.
I think more than architectural expression, it was conversations, right? I think that was an important, when we said we're going to design a university here, there were, what are the conversations that are happening uh, around the world, and can we start having those conversations here? And simple things. Do we want gender segregated hostels? Does it make sense? What does it mean to have that? Do we want to have gender neutral toilets? How inclusive are we trying to be when people identify, or people have started to identify in our country as not conforming to the binary gender anymore? These are the conversations that I think was important. It was not the architecture was a byproduct of these conversations. And same with, so apart from student life, it is the same with about education, right? Like, how are you teaching? What are you teaching? This is what's happening. Does this make sense? Do you want to do it differently? Is there another way of doing it? So I think those conversations are something having, and both, I think Aparna mentioned this, it's primarily a research done through our projects outside of this country. We were just bringing that research to this country and saying, is this relevant? And do you want to have a conversation about it? I mean, there were some places where we did, some places where we didn't, right? And that was what I think we mean by bringing global best practices to, I mean, what we consider is outside, because it made a difference, or had an impact on how people were using built environment or spaces, and can that be brought here?
And yeah, Rahul, if you want to.
No, I think you mentioned Khan and I would say Corbusier in the same breath there. And I think what we were doing at that time was importing an architect, an idea. And now the global is more to do with systems of delivery of projects. Why our international offices preferred is because the delivery of projects is concise. They've done it before. They can deliver in a faster time. They can deliver it in a way that it is meant to be. So that's the global aspect that is, I think, currently being. So it's not, it's Perkin Eastman's and Gensler's firms. They're not the architect, the lead architect, but that was a Khan and a Corbusier. In our case, Maki was still the architect, but that's, I think it's also because of the competition and the museum typology which was being built at that time. In 2010, 11, when the competition was announced, there was no museum built post-independence in India that was new. Now there's a whole bunch of them coming up, and there will be Indian practices that are being able to beat foreign firms as well. So I think the global world now is modifying to more a delivery of a project. I think that's what is important. And of course, I think bringing in cultural ideas of gender, which India has been averse to, those are things. So those global cultural aspects are what are being brought in.
I mean, also, like you said, you couldn't have competed, because the RFP demands that you must have done 5 other museums. You must. So somewhere also you're kind of setting a stage where there is no option but to collaborate, or there's no option but to bring in, I wouldn't say expertise again, experience of having done this in somewhere or other place and bringing it in. If RFPs today were crafted based on completely different set of criteria, where you say it doesn't matter, you've practiced in India, you've been in India for last 40 years or 25 years, we really don't care if you've never built a museum, here is your chance. And then maybe there is no need to collaborate anymore, right? Or bring in experience of having done this before. We would do it differently.
Now is, I think 2025 is very different from 2010. It was different from 2000, and it was different from 1950s when Corbusier Khan came in. India has grown as an economy, and it's got typologies now. It has firms that can participate in most typologies. There will be still few typologies where maybe Indian firms will not be able to participate, but I think now those will be at the end of your fingertips. Yeah. So I think now it's actually truly a global field. In our cities will become global cities. um, uh, it's still India is a different country from the rest of the world, especially the Western world. I won't say it's so different from the rest of the world, but it's different from the Western world. But at the same time, I think we are in the age where it's truly now a global, like Supriya was mentioning, competition is from not only within your country, it's from outside, it's everywhere, right? So, and I think that's where we are moving. And I think the phone has enabled that, the iPhone has enabled that. All our multinational companies are the same. Everybody's using the same phone, the same television, and you're being fed the same information through Google. We are truly in a global.
Yeah, I had two kind of questions. See, the thing is, what we have been kind of trying to crack through is that it's not as if such large projects of such scale were not being able to be done by Indian firms. Like if you think of IIM Bangalore or IIM, other IIMs which were done, they were fairly large projects by Indian architects, delivered very successfully. Also being kind of revered for the way in which they've responded to their context. And yet, like you are saying, the new kind of briefs were set in a manner that you couldn't operate without collaborating, turnover and all those things. So why do you think that that happened? Was it to incentivize the participation of multinational firms in our economy, or was it really the recognition of the fact that we cannot deliver as competently as international firms? Like that's difficult to put a point.
Well, I think to Rahul's point, if in 2010 nobody in India had built a new museum for decades, right? It made sense to ask experienced firm, no matter where in the world. And it wasn't that it barred people from India. You could be Indian, maybe you had done it somewhere else and come back. So it wasn't based on nationality, foreign versus local, but it was just asking for competent firms to participate in an RFP, right? These are big and complex projects, and therefore this thing, right? Now I think it's very loosely used. Things, every RFP starts like best in class, world class, of international standard, but there is no definition for these terms. So almost every RFP has these superlative terms, but if you really try and break them down, you can't really put it in a contract. They're not specifics, right? So you've got to take it with the intent of, why they would want that, which is possibly that if nobody had done it, and therefore they are looking for that. Now, sometimes today also we have developer clients, right? And they want the international name because their end clients want the international name, right? So they come to us sometimes saying, will you just do the facade design or just the concept? Because when we sell the project, we want to say designed by Gensler. And we actually politely refuse all those because we're not here to just give our name or our brand. We are here to truly design, right? So we always say that no, we'd like to take it full scope now, or at least through where most of the design decisions are done. And then we would stay on, right? Like how Maki was involved to be with whoever is the partner firm to see it to fruition.
So much for putting that out there. And in that register, I was thinking, comparing the project that of Bihar Museum and I think Supriya, you showed the project of I think Ashoka University, and this whole thing of firms coming for specialized kind of offerings to a project. And what I also feel that sometimes in the case of Ashoka University, for example, I felt that the context, in order to be made local, it was almost made a visual, like it had to announce itself in its image that it is local. Whereas if we look at the Bihar Museum, it brings a very different sensibility which visually cannot be recognized in any way as, you know, Indian, but kind of spatially works through a very local kind of thing. So do you think that there is this trap of, you know, under the, you know, whole pressure to mediate the global and local, there is a kind of uh, stylization that comes as a sticker on the buildings? If you would like to comment.
I mean, what you did see was the visuals, but I think there was a lot of work done as to why this particular material was chosen. Bricks were readily available. It tendered itself to a certain U value that we needed for the walls. The was not high, especially in that part. The jali was where there were two places where the jali announced itself, but also it was used as screens. And again, there was a very clear directive that whatever material you use, we don't want to keep putting up a scaffolding and painting a university every 5 years. It should weather and in place, right? So I don't think there was any tension. In fact, I think what came about through conversations was a clear direction as to use certain material, why we are using certain materials. Today, we will not touch bricks because the way bricks were used earlier, but now it's causing a lot of pollution. It's becoming a rare, almost a rare product, and we don't want to continue using that. So we have moved to another. But there was very clear intention behind each of the facade moves as well. And a lot of it was to do with sustainability and the design of that place. But so it wasn't only visual in that sense. There is, I don't, and through all our projects, I wouldn't say, but there's, except for AIMS, where I think because it was a project of national importance, there was a lot of forced use of certain materials, saying if you're here, use this only, or if you're here, use this only. And we were like, but there are 10 other materials we can use from this region, can we try? And they were like, no, let's, it should be evidently from this location, right? So I think that pressure was more because it was, they were very, the clients were very keen on making it very obviously a local project. But apart from that, I think that a lot of our sustainability initiatives have been able to address the materiality and the facade design process.
I think it is a trap we have to be careful of, and that's what separates, I think, good architects from average architects. And it's very easy to get into a system of, I mean, you see buildings in Dubai or where the screen becomes. But if you start looking at climate, sun, weathering, all these things deeply, then and historical buildings are your greatest references more than anything else. And if you can start referring to those that are timeless in nature. For me, my references even in modern architecture are still the masters, right? You go back to your Corbusier, Kahn, Mies, Alto, because those are timeless. And those are the...
Rahul, could you tell us a little bit about how the formal strategy of the Bihar Museum came into place? Because, given the template of Korea and Doshi that we have and we study so intimately in architecture, one would never kind of think of breaking away and putting together a form like that of the Bihar Museum, while it's still so scaled. So, how were you negotiating the idea of, this collaboration through the project?
So I'll talk a little bit on the collaboration, because that's always a question. First, for us, we were not the local architects for the continuation of this. For me, it was a continuation of SEPT. We studied in a studio, worked on models. I went to Marquis' office, worked on models, built buildings, and it was a continuation of that process. So for that, for us, it was not, I mean, we would have been happy to collaborate with Doshi, with any stalwarts. For us, it was a guru who we were collaborating with. That was more important. And it was, having worked in the office, we had a rapport with the architects. I think what was successful in that model was the two lead architects were actually sitting on either side of me when I was there. So we had a good rapport, and we could just pick off from where we left off. Skype was the way to communicate when we were doing this. WhatsApp had not even been launched and things like that. So it was interesting for us as a process. It was actually a continuation of the studio. So it could have been, and we continued doing that. We did three other competitions with Maki. We won one of them, the Amravati Capital Complex, which was huge. We did Science City, we did Nalanda, again, very large campuses. And it was actually two offices working as one. For the BR Museum in specific, this is where I say the systems, when a practice in Japan has delivered projects in the US, and US has a very good system of going through concept design, schematic design, design development, tendering, construction administration. This was new to us in India, right? And there's a very clear-cut way that Japanese architects, Japan is a small country, so they've had to look out. They've got amazing stuff within the country, but they've also gone and built outside. And to build outside, you need to have systems in place. And for us, it was a question of piggybacking and latching onto those systems. So Maki's office was very clear. Concept design, schematic design, drawings were produced by them. Opolis was only commenting. So we did not draw anything new. If it was anything new was proposed, it had to be a sketch. It was a separate drawing, and they would plug it into the building. From DD stage to tender stage to contract, roles reversed. All the production of the drawing happened at our end, and all the commenting happened on their end. So there's clear-cut responsibility, and how you do a project across borders was set up. And it was new to me, right? So, but I think these systems were in place, and that's what, when you don't have time to think, a government wants a project, entire building detailed out in 6 months. We took 14 months after a lot of fighting, trying to say that we'll get you a good set of drawings, and then to build it in 3 years was fantastic. So I think that was the expertise, and that's where I said the foreign practice. I mean, if we were to do it at that stage with IIMs got built in Bangalore, but they didn't get built fast, right? And they got built in their own pace. They got built in their own way. And the world has moved on to a much faster system, and that's where the systems help. Right. And that's where global is.
Yeah, so this is the systemic thing that you explain, but I was actually hinting at the way in which Maki's office, conceptualized these forms. Like, did it draw anything from the city, from the local culture, and how it?
So, like I told you, Mr. Maki has been coming to India since 1958, and he's got an intuitive sense of architect. I mean, that's a brilliant architect, right? In the competition phase, we just got the program, beautiful program from Lords, 500 pages, and we were just getting in off, trying to figure out what it is, and there Maki's sketches started coming, and things were just fitting in place. Numbers, volumes. I mean, we had to just scale the drawing, and back of house was figured out, front of house was figured out, connections, service. So that is just years and years of experience. A sketch is what happens, right? And that's where so I think Maki had an intuitive sense of programming, understanding architecture, understanding what is required, and understanding what it means to build in India. After winning the competition, one thing he came and told me is, show me buildings around, and show me what is, in your opinion, the best building in glass. I took him to Bombay at that time. BKC, Godrej was coming up, FIFC had come up, which were, in my opinion, were the best buildings in terms of curtain glazing. But Maki obviously saw that and said, no. We decided that day, let's not go the glass way. Let's make everything concrete, not go the steel way. Keep it simple. Let's work with forms, let's work with shadows, let's work with light, let's work with courtyards. Courtyards came out because of trees. So that was, I mean, the competition was already, the project was there, we built it. Hardly, like, I can say there's a 3 to 5% variation from the competition design, but the making of the building was what was experience of an architect. That was the experience of the architect that came in, and it's just, that's why he's a master, I mean, to that extent.
So if I may add, because that time I was with Lord Cultural Resources, who ran the competition, wrote that 500-page book, and you know, we had the behind the scenes on the scoring and all. The aesthetic, right? It is a museum building, right? It has to be spectacular, all of that. But if you look at the way it is structured with those 7 courtyards, each of them has a tree. Each courtyard is named after the tree. If you see the finished photos, there's all, you know, so both Gupta's sculptures and other art over there. So if you see the whole thing, there's a giant rangoli as you enter, you know, on the floor. There are always diyas and flowers and all of it. So it never felt like it didn't belong. And no, even the people who come there, they don't feel like it doesn't belong. You've got kota on the floor, you've got local stones, the light. Of course, it cannot have windows because you have exhibits there, and you know you don't want all that glare and light. You want to control all of that. But if you walk through there, it's very, very rooted in context.
Just a small interesting story. I mean, you know, Maki is coming for the opening of the museum, and we are like getting every tile scrubbed, and you know, you got to show him the building. And here, just one night before the opening, whole posse of women come in and start doing rangoli. Normally, I would expect it to be powder, but here they're going and painting it, yeah, on the floor. And oh my God, I said, what's Maki going to say tomorrow?
And don't miss the strings of yellow and orange marigolds.
But the next day, Maki comes and he's the coolest guy. He says, don't worry, that's okay. Let them make it their own. And he says, the architecture is so powerful, don't worry, all these things are good. They will make the space. So, you know, those are learnings we tend to finick on every small groove, every detail. They are important when we're making the building. But once people occupy it, it is theirs and they have to make it their own. I think that's what is a great learning for me.
I know we are, our audience is also waiting, but I'll throw one last question and then open it to the audience. And that is, you know, coming from Supriya's mention of the AIMS project, where you were very interestingly speaking about how you speak of the experience of the people as they will encounter a formal facility of care. And so I was thinking at that time that in kind of elaborating this experience of emotion in these buildings, these projects, they also, like, one is that there is a visible change in scale of a place. All these buildings, these are large complexes, and in which people have to enter and they have to navigate. So there's a switch in scale of everyday space which people have to kind of transact. How do you kind of mediate this overwhelm, if I may say? Because they are still that large, an activity which was probably much simpler. You knew the people, you knew a system, and you knew how to kind of get around, is now made way more formal and way more elaborate, which can actually overwhelm instead of make them comfortable. So, and this is a very peculiar kind of phenomena that we observe in the multinationalization of environments that we come to see. So how do you kind of pass this contradiction in practice, and if you have any insights about that?
I mean, it's a good question, but I don't know I don't know exactly if there's an answer to that. Except for, I mean, like you said, these are all. This is not it's not international practices coming and building big scale, right? I mean, it's airports. It's every place now you're seeing as a new place, or whether it's the new cultural center that's come up. I mean, everything is overwhelming, even if it's very different, right? So I think the attempt is always, again, human experience. It's not the scale of this place, plus how do you move through some of these spaces to get to where you need to get, and what is that interaction. So while designing the hospital as well, apart from the space, we also talk about what happens. and talk about operations of the hospital. How are you given care at the first go? What is that patient registration experience? Who is attending to you? When do you get off who is telling you where to go? I mean, these are also very, very important things for us when we talk to our clients. So I think it's trying to humanize and take away the stress and take away the angst of entering a completely new space is not just dealt with scale. The scale is needed just because of the number of people that's going to attend.
Yeah.
But for example, I'm just giving you example, like we will, while designing consciously, we will not design 1,000 people waiting area. It is the most yeah, it's very intimidating. It's loud, it's chaotic. You see people in stress, you get stress, see people in pain, and it's adding to your angst. So the way you segregate, you segregate why people, who is entering and why are they entering, right? So segregation of crowd, making sure that the experiences, so these are all moves that are made. Now of course the building might be huge, but where you enter and what you enter and for what you, where and what you do after that is also taken care of.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of, certain silent exclusions that settle in because of the change in the environment that takes place through such kind of, design, because the body gets judged. We hear instances after instances of people not being allowed in malls and so many places, and that is actually a kind of byproduct in the way in which the building is imagined. The building is in fact dressed also.
So yeah, I mean AIMS is then it's not the right example, because I would, when you can subsidize a major surgery for somebody at 30 rupees, that is the driving factor. Then they are not intimidated. I mean, people are coming from various smaller towns, and that's because that's the only tertiary medical service that is there in their entire state, right? So that intimidation is the service you're providing. It's our job then to make sure that
And I don't think it's the architecture and the spaces, right? It is how you treat people at the end of the day. And I'll go back to the Bihar Museum. In the Children's Gallery, there is a large lobby because a whole school, a bus will come of 60 kids. And consciously, the designers, I don't remember if it was your idea or, it was part of the exhibition design, but there's a tree that is made out of craft. And the kids come in, they see the tree, they know, like from their village school also, they just arrange themselves around the tree. And their teachers can then organize them and take them in, right? So the layers of operation, like Supriya was saying, right? Those are the layers you have to anticipate of and think of. So any thoughtful design will think of those things, and that will eliminate some of that stress, right? But at the end of the day, how you treat people, it has to be people themselves.
Thank you so much. I'll now open it to the audience. If there are any questions, comments, something you would like to know.
So my question was actually to anyone who would like to answer. How do forms and spaces developed in different geographies inherently work or adapt in the Indian context? And the reason I asked this question is I was personally studying how people design spaces for other cultures than their own. And I don't have the notes with me right now because, but a good quote I have with me from that time, I guess, is you can't solve problems outside of your inherent geography with solutions built in your current geography?
One word that came across was human, and human beings, your anthropometric, your nature is same across the world. And I think that's the core of architecture. If you keep your human at the center, then cultures and all the other layers which help around you. And that's the maturity, the experience of a person from outside looking in who can bring that. Some do it well, some don't. And I think that's what your background is. So I think there's no set formula, but beyond every architect at the end of the day is concerned with human, and that's what is most important.
Hello. Yeah. So from your presentations, there was a lot of emphasis on collaboration and partnership. So could you just be like dig deeper into how do these partnerships work out? Like how does the mobilization of ideas take place, and like how do you cooperate?
Um, so to be honest, it's seamless. You all use teams. You coordinate with families across the globe. We have technologies that allow us to sketch, draw real time. There's Miro board, Teams. You can have video calls. It is really fairly easy. Like we did work from home in the pandemic, and we delivered lots of work very successfully. So a lot of that happens where you're really able to ideate. There are a lot of tools that allow you to brainstorm together, put sticky notes, etc. So now better than ever before, right? You can be anywhere in the world and really be able to see, hear, talk, understand, sketch together, all of that. But you still need that in-person connect. So very often at regular intervals, either that team comes here or our team goes there, and the team together workshops for a few days, trace paper, etc., whatever the choice of tool. And also it helps to form those bonds to realize, okay, he's really good at planning and she's very good at managing the process, and so's got the documentation. So getting to know each other, because end of the day our profession is only about teamwork. We're not going to do projects of these scales if we don't work together. Beyond the architects, it's even the structural engineers, graphic designers, everyone. So I think that's...
I'll just elaborate on this a little bit more. Two architects working together, very, very tough. Two designers working together, very tough. So Sonal and me, we are two, but we can work together because our backgrounds are similar. Our teachers were same, we visited the same places, we studied at the same place, we traveled, did everything. So I think what I'm trying to say is a collaboration can happen only between two like minds. For us to be able to collaborate with a marquee, if we may not be, we did it with Stephen Hall. Stephen Hall's collaboration ended. It was again a collaboration. But you cannot collaborate if your vision, your grounding is not the same. And that is the key. Yeah. So I think Sonal and me, we are completely different people. We are saying we are having fights in the office. We are coming at the same problem from two different angles. But at the end, we are saying the same thing. That's what is important. And I think a collaboration requires trust, complete trust. A marquee and we could work, Ratan's office and we are working together. I worked with Rahul Mehrotra, I worked with Stephen Hall. Trust is a base. If there's even an iota of doubt, collaborations fall apart. So there are a lot of other issues that work, but at the core is you have to have the same ideology. You cannot work with a Hafiz contractor. You cannot work with an office that you don't get along with. Your ideas have to match, then only you can see them through. Otherwise, I'm telling you, the world out there is like the government. When we are collaborating, the first thing anybody tries to do is divide and rule. They try and break you. The contractor is there to just break you apart and say, this guy doesn't know anything, and they're trying to fight. But that's when you have to stand together strong. So that's why I'm saying to complete trust is the most important thing in any collaboration. Nothing else matters.
Helps to have the same enemy also. When it comes to the government. No, but it's not easy. I mean, you said seamless technologically, but not easy. It's one of the toughest things you will do. You do group assignments, right? It's not never easy because there are different people, different personalities. But I think one is having, if the ultimate goal is to deliver your vision for the project, and I think if that's common ground, then you'll work together. The other is trust and respect. Then respect for the role that each one is playing in the group. But to get to that is also very tough. So you just have to, I think it's trial and error. There are collaborations that work, collaborations that won't work, but that doesn't mean that we don't collaborate. We have to. So we'll just keep at it, find friends as we go along, and some friendships don't last. So then, it's like that. But it's a lot of hard work. And I think half our jobs is to make sure that that's what's being successful.
Any more questions? Yeah. Grishma, can you pass the mic to Grishma?
Yeah. Hi. So, like in all three of your presentations, one thing that came forward was global firms wanting to be local, like at least with Gensler and Perkinson. So, I just wanted to ask that when you say that global firms should start with being local first, what do you define as local? Like, what is your definition of that local? Because if projects on the scale that y'all are working on are happening and you are trying to bring in the local, then whatever you make is what will become the understanding of local for people who are visiting those places. So that becomes a huge responsibility for the people designing those spaces to define what their local is. So I just wanted to ask, what is your definition of that local?
Very, very thoughtful question. So the first and foremost is we are from here, right? My entire team, Supriya's team, we are Indians here. Yes, we may have studied and worked, but we are from here. So it's not that we are delivering work from the US in India. The reason we have 57 offices is because the people in those offices are locals, right? So it is not that you are putting in something forced and foreign to things here. But what you are doing is adding those layers of things that are happening elsewhere that would be, things would be so much better here if we follow that as well, right? So there is no real hard line or divide between global and local, and it's not black and white. There is, there's a type of project for every designer, and we are all global citizens today. I think each of us is consuming content which is from all over the world. We're so aware of other cultures, we've traveled, and so on. So, and even our culture, right? It's always evolving. India today is not even what it was 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So throughout history, modernization has happened, continue to happen. Globalization or a different culture coming in, but that's just part of evolution.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, really thanks for this, really taking us through your journeys. And I think what was interesting is to see this kind of, what Supriya, you showed the shifts that are happening, constantly, the idea of competition and things moving. And I was just wondering, and I think from all of your experiences, do you see in terms of really kind of thinking of this multinational dispositions, a kind of reversal where the geography of the world has shifted and the geography of the world is now our field? Do you see a space where local practices here become competent enough to even start looking at the West as a field, you know? Or is the geopolitics so strong that it's always going to be the other way around? You know, because we are seeing this kind of expertise building, we are seeing learning systems, you know, but is there of starting to look at a disposition which is the other way around? Is there a way of seeing the world from here, which is perhaps also a different lens to see the world from? So I'm just asking in terms of, you know, where we are going, where we are heading in terms of the future.
100%. It's already happening. I mean, our IT people are everywhere designing IT systems in the whole world. Similarly, our designers are designing projects abroad as well. So while we do projects in India, we also have teams here that are working like concept design of a project in Japan or in London or Birmingham or wherever, right? So part of being a global firm is exactly that. It's not a one-sided kind of transfer of expertise and knowledge, but it is, you know, always. And like, for example, the Shanghai Tower, many of you are familiar with that. 19 offices from Gensler worked to build that building. Now also we have a big project where I think there are some 10 or 11 offices with teams over there to do it. So projects of scale, sometimes we have people here who are very experienced, and another office, say data centers, right? I have a very competent team in India, and then sometimes there are other offices who don't have that. So the team from Mumbai is actually doing projects in foreign countries. So 100%. I don't think it is any lack of competence ever. It is more geopolitics. It is also policies. It is the RFPs and the qualifying criteria. Those are the things that define more than really competency. And I think it's definitely happening.
Okay, I think we have already overshot 8 o'clock, and this has been a very fruitful discussion. So I really want to thank you all, and I must say that we are working towards making this discussion also a chapter in the new history for architecture in India, because it has not been kind of studied. So we'll definitely reach out to you further to, you know, elaborate these notes and make this a substantial kind of discussion for students who are interested. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time to come here and discuss with us. Thank you all of you for waiting back for this discussion. Our next discussion will be happening around the turn into architects designing interiorscapes. There's a huge turn that we see architects primarily in cities taking to interior as a kind of primary way. And Rahul used to say that interior pet ke liye aur architecture dil ke liye. So we'll be opening that up in our next session, which is scheduled on 19th September evening 6 to 8. So please do join us for that discussion also with our next 3 panelists. So on that note, thank you so much for making this a successful evening. Thank you.